Congratulations on your election.
Thank you, Raul.
I always believed in you. I hope you bring Cuba to a prosperity.
I will, but for now I will have to track down the Batista supporters and kill them all.
One of the biggest events in Cuba, the Cuban Revolution, started in 1953 with Fidel Castro, Raul Castro, and many other anti-Batistans banding together with a single objective of dragging Batista down from his power, and there were multiple reasons for it. Fulgencio Batista, the former prime minister of Cuba, was a very corrupt, cruel, and tyrannical governor. He killed 20,000 Cubans in just 7 years of his reign. Moreover, he successfully turned Cuba into a police state from a democratic state. Batista was also disliked by many Cubans for having a close bond with the US, which was one of the main reasons for his fall of power. Fidel Castro also ran for a spot in the Cuban People's Party, but was stopped by Batista's group, which showed his corrupt side. This fueled Fidel Castro's urge to bring Batista even further, and Fidel Castro decided to use his own methods for achieving dictatorship. Also, during Batista's rule, there were many affluent people within Cuba, but most of the population were suffering in poverty. Many were unemployed, in debt, malnourished, and starving, while the millionaires enjoyed their stay at fancy five-star hotels within Cuba. There was also the 1952 Cuban coup d'etat, when Batista used his military strength to win the election. The main figures within the Cuban Revolution was Fidel Castro, Raul Castro, Che Guevara, and a group of anti-Batistans.
I'm so sick of Batista's dictatorship over Cuba. He is corrupt and oppressive, just like the Cuban governors before him. That's it. I'm going to start a revolution.
Let's do it, brother. We shall bring Batista down from his crown.
But first, we must gain revolutionaries to join our cause. Let's go plan our attacks.
That sounds good.
This was called the 26th of July movement in 1953 that is considered as the start of the Cuban Revolution. 123 men stormed the Moncada barracks, but the government arrested them all immediately and imprisoned them. After 2 years, Fidel and his brother Raul are released and they flee to Mexico. On December 2nd, 1956, Fidel, Raul, and Che Guevara get a yacht to Cuba with 82 men. Batista's army acts again as they have spotted the boat and killed 60 men. Batista made a mistake in the strategy, however, as instead of attacking them towards the sea, they attacked towards the mountains. Consequently, the brothers and few survivors desperately escaped to the Sierra Maestra mountains. Castro convinces the peasants in the mountains to join their movement and gathered 300 people. With the supporters, he started a guerrilla war against the Cuban government. Meanwhile, there are also university students who stormed the presidential palace aiming to assassinate Batista. These events encouraged more people in diverse backgrounds to join the rebels, showing how it started off as an individual, but other kinds of groups are key to the rise of the revolution. By 1958, Batista was barely keeping his power in place, and the United States also turned against him. As a response to the guerrilla war, he started battles against Castro called the Operation Verano. This ended as a complete failure for Batista, and finally, on the 1st of January 1959, Batista left for the Dominican Republic, and Castro and his army marched into Havana to take control of the government.
Get away from me. It's over, Batista. I have the high ground. I've taken over the Cuban government, and I'll make Cuba great again.
That's it. I'm fleeing to Florida.
Okay, guys. First of all, we have to track down all the Batista supporters and kill them all to make sure Batista supporters can never take control of Cuba ever again.
Since then, Fidel Castro became the prime minister and then the president for 50 years, and his brother Raul was a defense minister and the leader of the armed forces.
In terms of Cuba's relationship with other countries, the United States served its ties with Cuba, and Cuba had an ongoing relationship with the Soviet Union. However, many political officials and military officers were executed. Middle and upper-class Cubans got exiled to Florida, which weakened the effects of the U.S. on Cuba's national affairs. Cuba invaded sugar estates in the control of the U.S., which led to the tension rising between two countries. Cuba, with their sugar, exchanged it for oil with the Soviet Union, expanding the trade. In June of 1960, the Castro government took over American and British oil refineries in Cuba. However, the refineries denied processing crude oil imports from the Soviet Union. The U.S. stopped buying sugar from Cuba. In fact, starting from October of 1960, they did not allow any Cuban ships and trades as well as U.S. exports of goods to Cuba. This soon brings an end to their diplomatic relationship in 1961. The Soviet Union stops their support of Cuba as well. The government, with Fidel as prime minister, offered services to help women get employed. Childcare programs were mainly what was offered.
As the newly elected Prime Minister of Cuba, I will endorse women and help them get employed. Also, I will try to establish a child care program in Cuba to make sure everyone is safe and everyone is happy.
Thank you, Mr. Fidel.
No problem. Now it's time to kill the Batista supporters and make sure they can never come back.
The new government also encouraged people to share ideas and supported freedom of speech. However, it sometimes tried to manipulate citizens when they did not appreciate the revolutionary changes. Some of the lasting achievements of the revolution are unemployment disappearing in 1990, income distribution becoming fair, 80% of Cubans owning houses, medical care and education granted free, life expectancy growing from 57% to 73.5% in 1983, and so on.
Years after the Cuban Revolution, some wonder if it really did achieve its goal of making Cuba great. The revolution had a lot of successes, like how the government was able to say as a communist/Marxist state, even to today. Fidel Castro promises people that he would make his famished country powerful once more. Some of its successes were its advancements in healthcare, housing, and education, and the availability of its resources. Healthcare and education have become free, and 80% of all Cubans own houses. Cuba has one of the most doctors per capita in Latin America, and has the highest amount of funds in Latin America go to education. Not only that, employment disappeared in 1990, and income distribution has become fair to everyone. In 1970, the GDP per capita for Cuban citizens was $653. Now it's $8,822, a major increase. A lot of the revolution's ideologies haven't died yet, as Russia and Cuba are still good partners to each other even after the Cuban Revolution and the Cuban Missile Crisis. The revolution showed that every other third world country, that even though an oppressive, corrupt government like Batista's, people can accomplish anything and end the regime.
However, not everything was positive. It had many failures as communism is fading away in many countries. In Cuba, although the country is still communist, more democratic practices are seen in the government and lawmaking in favor of being more modern, marking the decline of communism in Cuba. Even with this democracy hybrid government, it is still not an actual democracy. Elections were not actual democracy. People voted for a municipal assembly, then they voted for the provincial assembly, which elects the members of the National Assembly of People's Power. The political system is restricted, and the freedom of speech, press, and religion are oppressed. The press itself is controlled by the government, and citizens only have a limited practice of religion. In 2016, Fidel Castro passed away, which further declined the use of revolutionary ideals. And even if Cuba's healthcare, education, and housing became better, Cuba is still very poor and it depends mostly on tourism and trade with Russia, making $3 to $5 billion each year through trade. Not only that, Cuba cannot trade with its neighbors because of the US's foreign policies and their blockade.